All right, well, we have a packed agenda today, so why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm sure there will be plenty of others joining us as they are able. My name is Jenny Delwood, Executive Vice President at the Liberty Hill Foundation. I want to welcome everybody to Liberty Hill Foundation's 2020 Prop Party. This is an event designed to both be informative and fun. So get your phones ready or another device if you're currently watching this Zoom on your phone, because we do have a bit of a competition that we'll be engaging in shortly. Again, we're trying to lean into the party side of Prop Party. Just want to do a couple of acknowledgments before we get started. Some folks may be aware that the Prop Party has been something that we've built into the culture of Liberty Hill Foundation. Initially, the concept of the prop party, or the term prop party, was brought to us by one of our giving circles, the Black Giving Circle, as well as Angelinos for LA have been doing prop parties for the last number of years. Of course, our founder, Sarah Pillsbury, has been hosting prop parties over time, over a decade at this point. So we want to thank everybody and give credit where credit is due about this concept of the prop party, again, being both informative about what's on the ballot as well as fun. Before I go on, I also want to just say a little bit about the Liberty Hill Foundation. For anybody that's new, raise your hand if you're new. This is your first Liberty Hill event. Not seeing a whole lot of hands, but oh, I see one hand. Great, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. The Liberty Hill Foundation has been around for 43 plus years. We are a hub and central place in Los Angeles for social justice, philanthropy, and progressive social change. If you want to know more, you can check out our website at libertyhill.org, and hopefully this event gives you a sense of who we are, what we do, and what we care about. Also, I'd love to now move us along to a new initiative that we've recently relaunched at Liberty Hill. If we can go to the Liberty Vote slide. Awesome, thank you, Ray. The Liberty Vote Initiative is a program at Liberty Hill that we used to have back in the early 2000s. And given the importance of the 2020 election, we have relaunched this program. And we are excited to unite grassroots hustle and electoral muscle across Los Angeles County. Tonight's program is part of our Liberty Vote Initiative. The initiative also includes grants. This year, those electoral engagement grants are in honor of our dear friend and former board chair, Gary Stewart, who has been a longtime Liberty Hill supporter, and these grants are given out in his honor. So we're honored to give out grants to social justice activists who are combining organizing around issues as well as organizing around elections to build power here in Los Angeles County. We've also endorsed a couple of ballot measures. We have a voter guide that we're going to be talking about next. Here's the link to our voter guide. Check it out. We'll be talking about our priorities, which are outlined in our voter guide during today's event. So please take a look at it, and we'll also put it in the chat for those who are able to look at the chat during this event. Next, we have a trivia competition that we are going to jump right into. Again, this is the fun part of the prop party. We are going to then transition to a brief overview of some of Liberty Hill's key priority issues on the ballot. And then we will go into a facilitated discussion with all of us, sharing our knowledge, asking the questions that you haven't been able to get answered yet. And really, this is designed to be an event that's built on a conversation. So we'll get to that for at least the last half of our time together, and we'll wrap up by 6:15. This will be quick, easy, done in a hurry, and we'll have some fun along the way. So I'd like to ask everybody at this time to bust out your phone, your iPad, or your computer, some other device that you don't have our Zoom on right now. You can go to either menti.com, or you can simply use your camera to scan the QR code, that's that funny looking box with all those zigzags in it, to get to the menti.com page. So if everybody could take out your phone, go to menti.com, or take a photo, or at least zoom in your camera onto that QR code, you'll be directed right away to the menti.com site. Once you are there, you will be asked to enter a code. There is a code on your screen. I'll read it out. 4386997. Again, 4386997. So please get out your phone and we will begin. So again, I'm not seeing too many people that have done this yet. So I want to give folks the chance to do it. Go to menti.com and use the code 4386997. We have a quick question that is currently up on the screen to give others a chance to engage. How do you feel about the upcoming election? I'm seeing scared as a primary feeling here, worried, shaking in my boots, anxious, aggressive, hopeful, fired up, weary, worried, apprehensive, anxious and scared. Fired up, I like that one. Stressed, seeming to be scared, just taking the most of our attention here in this word cloud. Pumped to kick, ASS. Feel free to put any kind of word you're feeling in your word cloud here. I see 40 folks, 42, 43 have now joined us on Menti. So please do join us if you haven't had a chance yet. Again, the instruction is either go to menti.com or use the QR code that was previously on the screen and enter 4386997. I think we've gotten everybody's words here. Determined, I didn't read out that one yet. Get them out, discouraged, we can do it, hopeful, suspicious. Thank you, everybody, for your input. I think we are all feeling a combination of all of those things combined, and we got to channel that energy, whether it be anxiety or apprehensiveness, and we got to take nothing for granted and get out there and hit the streets. With that being said, we're going to talk a bit about some key questions to give you a chance to test your electoral knowledge today. We're gonna get started here with question 1 of 5 questions, that's it. If you answer it correctly, you get points. If you answer it quickly, you get additional points. So this is going to be a fun challenge for all of us. And I will say that we do have prizes in store for the winners. So please make sure to enter your name so we know who you are. Enter your name, first name with last initial would be very helpful so we can identify you as the winners by the end of all of this. And you will get a prize. Drum roll, please. What is the prize? It is a Liberty Hill face mask. That's right, face mask to cover yourself, protect yourself from COVID. That says Liberty Hill, as well as a gift card. So stay tuned for that coming in the mail for those that have their electoral trivia game on point. Let's go ahead and press enter to start the game here. Again, answer fast to get more points. First question, how many statewide ballot propositions are on the November 3rd ballot? 10, 11, 12, or 13? Please cast your votes. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's see what folks said. We have 12 for 12. That is the correct answer. Thank you, everybody. Next up, we're going to see a leaderboard. Who's in the lead? We got Roberta taking charge, answering correctly and quickly, and Pinky, followed by Teddy and Michelle, as well as Hula Hop. All right. Next question. Remember, the faster you answer, the more points you get. Which countywide ballot measure is also known as Reimagine LA and will direct 10% of the county's budget into alternatives to incarceration? Measure C, Measure J, Measure R, or Measure RR? Time's up. And the answer is Measure J. That's right, everybody. 19 people got it correctly. Uh-oh, Roberta fell behind. Pinky seems to be pulling ahead. Montana and Kamala. We got Pinky in the lead. All right. Question 3. What is the last day to register to vote in person in the state of California? County of Los Angeles. October 17th, October 19th, October 31st, or November 3rd? November 3rd. All right, we got some smart people in this crowd. That is correct. California just instituted same-day registration on election day. So that is good news. More people can vote that way. And it looks like Kamala and Roberta are neck and neck, followed right behind by Pinky. Question number 4. Proposition 17 will provide voting rights to individuals on parole. If passed, how many people will gain the right to vote? 25,000, 50,000, 75,000, or 100,000? All right. Again, smart people, 50,000 is the correct answer. And our leaderboard says Kamala is still in the lead. All right, last question. Proposition 15 will close California's commercial property tax control and restore how many dollars annually for schools and community services? 12 million, 15 million, 12 billion, or 15 billion? That's right. 10 people got it correctly. 12 billion is the correct answer. Let's see how it plays out. Oh, we got to shake things up on the last one here. It looks like Teddy is our big winner, followed by Kamala and Montana. All right. So Teddy, let's go to the full screen and let's turn off the music. Who is Teddy? Raise your hand if you're Teddy. Nobody's claiming the prize. Oh, yes, Ted Neal. Thank you, Teddy. Congratulations. You get a Liberty Hill face mask. If you're Montana, go ahead. Shout it out. Anybody on Montana that wants to claim, think that was second place? Nobody's stepping forward. No Liberty Hill face mask for you. All right, and Kamala. Do we have a Kamala with us today? All right, Mr. Ted Vail, you are the big winner. Congratulations for winning Liberty Hill's Prop Party Challenge today. All right, everybody can use your fun Zoom celebratory clapping of hands or, you know, confetti and whatnot. Thank you so much. I hope folks found that somewhat enjoyable and were able to play along in some way, shape, or form, even if you weren't able to log into Menti. All right, so now we're going to transition out of our fun and games to a quick overview of some of Liberty Hill Foundation's most pressing priorities that are on the ballot. As folks know, the Liberty Hill Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 organization, which means we cannot endorse candidates. Of course, we know there are a number of important candidates on the ballot, everything from the DA's race, the presidential race, members of Congress, members of the LA supervisorial, the supervisors board, etc. We will not be talking about that today, but we will be talking about some key ballot initiatives on our agenda. So we will pass it first to our very own former executive director and mastermind of many things at Liberty Hill, Michelle Pritchard, to share a little bit about the Schools and Communities First ballot initiative. And if we could bring up that slide, Ray, that would be great.
Thank you, and that was really fun, and hello, everybody. So I wanted to start with just a very quick 2 thank yous. First to everyone who has donated to Schools and Communities First, organized a house party or attended one, collected signatures, or posted a lawn sign. And secondly, I just wanted to thank my Liberty Hill family for essentially loaning me to work on this campaign for much of 2020. So Schools and Communities First, or Yes on 15, is really the most consequential and transformative measure on the California ballot. First, it will benefit millions of people: school children, college students, teachers, nurses, firefighters, and low-income residents who depend on vital local services. Second, the measure is about big change, and its passage will give confidence, I think, to progressives everywhere that we can do bold things. Third, Schools and Communities First is really the culmination of years of thoughtful, patient community organizing and electoral power building, much of it supported by Liberty Hill. So what will Schools and Communities First do? And this is going to be really fast, and we can come back in the discussion. But first, it will reclaim $12 billion every year for K-12 schools, for community colleges, for local services when fully implemented. It closes a long-standing tax loophole that has benefited multinational, the wealthiest property owners in the state. It protects all homeowners, tenants, and residential properties. And finally, it exempts small businesses and includes a tax reduction for most of them. So I just wanted to say a little bit about what the next 4 weeks is going to look like. First, you maybe already realize that we face an opposition that pledges to spend $100 million to defeat us. They are flooding the airways right now with lies about Prop 15, scaring homeowners and small businesses. They include Chevron and the Business Roundtable and Howard Jarvis Tax Association, the railroads, and Blackstone. Second, you will see organizations across the state activate their grassroots members through voter guides and phone calls and Zoom meetings like this one. Our coalition includes the California PTA, League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood, unions, all of them urging their members to vote yes on 15. Third, Yes on 15 is mounting a very sophisticated television, radio, and digital ad strategy in order to stay competitive on the airways. And finally, the campaign is deploying the most tech-savvy and I would say large-scale and coordinated GOTV, Get Out the Vote operation ever, targeting young voters and voters of color, newly registered voters, immigrant voters. Community-based groups, many of them funded by Liberty Hill again, have built the electoral muscle to do this over the last 5 or 6 years, and now it's a chance to flex it so that they can reach 500,000 voters who will be the margin of victory on this very important measure. So thanks to you for all your support, and we'll come back during Q&A.
Thank you, Michelle. And Liberty Hill Foundation has been a proud endorser of the Schools and Communities First Ballot Initiative, or Prop 15, well before it got on the ballot, but for the last decade plus, even as you know, the community activists and frontline leaders have been dreaming about the day when this would be on the ballot. So really appreciate everybody's direct contributions, whether you're a volunteer or whether you're a house party host or whether you're a donor to Prop 15, Schools and Communities First, and your support all the way from a decade plus ago until now to help make sure that our property tax system, particularly the commercial property tax system, is fixed once and for all here in California. Next up, another ballot initiative, a local measure here in Los Angeles County that Liberty Hill is proud to endorse. It is also led by community leaders on the front lines. I'll pass it to our VP of Strategic Partnerships, Julio Marcial, to talk about Measure J.
Thank you, Jenny. Measure J, J for Justice. This has been getting a lot of attention of late. One of the county's core functions is to serve residents in the greatest need. That includes young people, adults, their families. And for too long, many of us have witnessed it has met those needs the wrong way. With arrest, when mental health treatment was critically lacking, and jail. and when addiction or supportive housing would bring better results. And so I think part of the push the last few years has been to support efforts to divest from the punishment system and to really support a care first model in Los Angeles. And so if we're going to do better as a county, we have to really help reverse the generations of economic and racial inequity. And much of that work must be done at the county level where services are delivered. So what Measure J does is really, and again, just to give you more context, as many of you support Liberty Hill, especially our youth justice work, the county is in the midst of a historic shift, really rejecting construction of new jails and really embracing an innovative alternatives to incarceration program resulting from collaboration amongst county officials, as well as our nonprofit partners and community activists and representatives. But here's the fact. New policy direction will take money, and some comes from the remaining funds that have been set aside for the new jails, but that won't be nearly enough. If the county is to fund a community-based care-first approach to public safety without raising taxes, the Board of Supervisors will have to allocate a greater share of its existing funds to those programs that it currently does. We all know the county has a very large annual budget, $35 billion, but most of that money is encumbered by state and federal mandates. So very little discretion to support community efforts to ensure that residents have a fair chance to succeed. And so what Measure J does, it basically includes money to support the things that we care desperately about: housing, youth development, and it ensures that at least one out of every $10 that is unencumbered, local generated dollars is invested in services geared toward treatment and economic development rather than law enforcement and punishment. Like Michelle talked about communities and schools first, there is opposition. And those include the unions that represent the sheriff's deputies, probation officers, criminal prosecutors, and others in law enforcement. They have every right to organize and fight for better pay and working conditions, but let's not forget that the majority of the county budget already goes to them. So what we're asking for folks is to weigh in on Measure J to ensure that the resources and the very organizations that are on the front lines have access to public money, and to ensure that they have a fair chance to also prove that their programs are effective. So as Jenny mentioned, the foundation has come out. We have support. We are saying yes to Measure J, and we also hope that you too as well. Thank you. Jenny?
Thank you, Julio. All right, we got Measure J. We have schools and communities first. Those are certainly Liberty Hill's top two priorities on the ballot measure list this year. We hope that folks will join us in voting yes on both, keeping our budgets and our revenues funding schools, communities, and alternatives to incarceration. We do want to do a very brief overview of the other measures that are on the ballot that Liberty Hill has taken a particular stance on within our voter guide. Those include Proposition 16, which of course is repealing the ban on affirmative action, repealing Proposition 209, and ensuring that in terms of employment and admissions, as well as contracting, that people of color have the opportunity that they deserve, as well as women. So we're fighting for racial equity and gender equity with Proposition 16. Proposition 17 restores the voting rights for individuals on parole, folks returning home from prison that have already done their time, and will be able to see 15,000 new people be able to come to the polls once this is passed. Yes, on Proposition 18, this is the Youth Vote Ballot Initiative that allows 17-year-olds who will be 18 in a general election, but maybe 17 in a primary election, the opportunity to vote. Again, leaning in to ensuring that our young people are driving the change that we'd like to see in this world and have the opportunity in both the primary and the general to shape their future. The only no on the screen that you see in front of you is Proposition 20. Proposition 20 rolls back hard-fought criminal justice reforms. Folks may remember Proposition 47, Proposition 57, AB 109. These were pieces of legislation and ballot initiatives that we passed, or our legislators passed on our behalf, that changed the draconian criminal policies and injustice policies. And now this Proposition 20 seeks to go backwards. And we don't want to go backwards, so we're saying no on Proposition 20. Proposition 21, this is another hard-fought issue that Liberty Hill has been behind to bring rent control to local communities. This particular initiative will repeal parts of existing state law to ensure that the city of Los Angeles and other cities across our county are able to actually cap rents in a way that meets tenants' needs and is predictable to landlords. So we are saying yes on Proposition 21. And finally, Measure RR, which is to repair and renovate Los Angeles Unified Schools. This is going to keep the bond and tax level the same as it is currently, but give us additional money for our schools that we need to do things like ensure that we have, we're addressing the digital divide, to ensure that we're able to have outside classrooms potentially, but without resources, we can't ever get back to school safely with things like potentially outside classrooms, or even just the basics, plumbing, lights on, etc. So those are the ballot initiatives that we at Liberty Hill have included in our voter guide today. You can check it out. It is included in the chat, and our chat monitors will include the link to our Liberty Hill voter guide again now. Please do share that with your friends, family members, and others, where you'll be able to get a little bit deeper dive than we just went over. Now we'd like to transition into our discussion, because we know we went over those pretty quickly and folks may have questions on a variety of things or other ballot propositions or measures that you may find in your voter guide that may confuse you. You may need some additional information on. So to help guide our conversation, I would like everybody to turn your attention to your screen and fill out a quick poll. You'll see the questions there in front of you. Basically, one question with a variety of answers. Click as many as you'd like. What ballot measure would you like to discuss or learn more about today? The ones that we've discussed so far are here, and we also have a few others. So this will help guide our discussion. And of course, if you have another ballot initiative that you don't see here that you are confused about, we will certainly prioritize it. You can go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm seeing Eric as well as Angela talk about Prop 25, and we will certainly engage in a discussion about Prop 25, since it looks like a lot of the folks voting are also voting for more information there. I'm also seeing a request next up, it looks like, is more information on schools and communities first, as well as Measure J. Please get your votes in. I'm seeing at this point in time, 23 people have voted out of those on the line, which is certainly not yet the majority. So please continue to cast your votes for what you feel like you want to talk about today. And we will try to structure our conversation accordingly. Again, if you don't see the ballot initiative that you have questions on within the screen, you're welcome to include a question or even just the number of the ballot proposition in the chat. All right, why don't we go ahead and end the poll and show the results. So as you can see, for all those that are able to see the screen, Prop 25 was by far the largest amount of interest, followed by Schools and Communities First, as well as Measure J. So those will be our top three items that we talk about, and then we will go on from there. Prop 25, followed by Schools and Communities First, and then Measure J. And then I'm seeing in the chat as well some interest as well. So thank you everybody for voting. Let's go ahead and take the poll results down. And we'll go ahead and dive into our conversation. If you have a specific question about Proposition 25, please go ahead and put it in the chat. If you feel that you are an expert or have something valuable to say, an opinion is more than welcome, about Proposition 25, you can raise your hand. So Ray, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the screen about how to raise your hand, the slide that we have. So if you feel like you have a lot to say about Proposition 25, please do use the raise hand function, which in order to do so, you click on the participants button or the 3 tabs on your mobile device. And then you click raise hand at the bottom and we'll be able to see you. All right. Again, if you have a specific question about Proposition 25, please go ahead and put that in the chat. If you feel that you are knowledgeable about Proposition 25, please go ahead and raise your hand and we will engage you in this conversation so that you can help answer some of the questions. So I will go ahead and start. I see a question here. What about Prop 25 replacing bail with system-based public safety and flight risk? It seems like there's contradictory ads that have Angela confused. Thank you so much, Angela, for that question. So let's go ahead and open it back up for the full screen so everybody could see one another in this conversation. Liberty Hill did not take a stance on Proposition 25. And we did not take a stance because there is quite a bit of debate and a split amongst many of our community partners around Proposition 25. As folks know, the Ballot Initiative 25, Prop 25, will replace the cash bail system that we currently have in the state of California with a different system, which will allow for judges to use a risk assessment to determine who gets kept in jail until they're able to go through their trial and go through due process, and who is able to be released from jail until their trial. So instead of having a cash bail system where you pay your way to get out, instead there's a risk assessment. Why is this controversial? The reason that it's controversial is that, as Jody indicates here in the chat, oh, I'm sorry, not Jody, Susan, the ACLU and others have opposed the algorithm, this risk assessment. There's concern that the risk assessment may be biased based on race, bias based on family members who have potentially been in gangs, bias based on a number of different reasons. And so there's concern, there's a question about, well, is this algorithm and risk assessment better than the cash bail system, or is it worse? And that debate is playing out in many of the ads and so forth. I'm seeing a few different additional notes in the chat. I don't think any of them are actually related to Prop 25, so we'll get to the other ones shortly. And I'm not seeing anybody else raise their hand, I don't think, that wants to speak on Prop 25. However, I will open it up one more time. Julio, I know, is our in-house expert on all things criminal justice. If you would like to add anything to my summary, trying to be as objective as possible around Prop 25, please do so.
Absolutely. And again, I'll be quick. The county uses algorithms with its probation department. And what we've seen in the probation department system for not just a year, but decades, is that more people of color have been detained because of those algorithms. So I think part of what you're hearing folks say is that, the factors considered for release will still lead to people of color being held for trial at disproportionate rates. And, folks that, we support, are basically stating that Prop 25 is further from the existing problem, but no closer to the solution. Of course, you have the bail industry who doesn't want to change anything because they benefit from the current system. And then you have other folks that are saying, the cash bail system is inherently classist, racist, and unfair, and that people with wealth can pay their way out of jail while awaiting trial. So there's a lot of tension points. This is as a result of some legislative, Senate Bill 10, which also created some division amongst organizations. But again, this is one where you're just going to have to really look at, the totality of the system and see what's better, the current system or a system that needs to be completely done from top to bottom. And so I think that's where you see a lot of the tension points.
Thank you, Julio. And I'm seeing Moira who has shared that another progressive organization said it's not perfect, but if it gets voted down, the legislature will not be able to review another bill. If it passes, the legislature can continue to work on it. Appreciate your feedback and input there on that. All right, thank you, everybody. So we have, I think, concluded our conversation on Prop 25. We'll move right along to the next item that was voted on during the poll, which was schools and communities first. So again, if you have a specific question about schools and communities first, you are welcome to put it in the chat. I did see one question come through from Fran Jamont, former board member and longtime supporter and family member of Liberty Hill prior to the event, which I'll start the conversation off by passing it to you with this question, Michelle, which was, how's the polling looking? What are the updates on how it's doing across the state? I also see that Jody has made a question or entered a question into the chat. What's up with the NAACP? There's ads on MSNBC saying that the NAACP is voting no, or has said come out as no on Prop 15. So can you share more about that?
Great. Well, thank you. Yes, sure. Thanks for those two questions. And Jody, let me start with yours. It's very important because people are going to start to, we ought to do a little poll, see how many people have seen those commercials. I will put it in the chat, or I'll send it out later. There's an expose that came out in Cal Matters about a week ago that did a really great job of investigative journalism. And they found that the state chair of the NAACP, Alice Huffman, who I should say has been there really for decades, has accepted $1.2 million from the California Business Roundtable and other corporations, and is appearing in ads to say no on 15, no on 25, and also no on the rent control measure. So important for people to know that about half of that 1.2 million is from the No on 15 committee. So the concern here is simply that there is no democratic process inside the statewide NAACP. There are local chapters of the NAACP, including San Bernardino, who are taking support positions. But really, to us, it just seems like it really is a pay to play kind of an arrangement. So I will send around the Cal Matters article because it goes into a lot of detail on it. Fran's question on polling, we have had a consistent but not a comfortable lead. I think about 10 days ago, the Public Policy Institute of California came out with a new poll, and it had us at 51% support amongst likely voters. I believe the opposition was down around 37, 38%. So they have a big gap to close in on us, but lots of undecided voters. One of the key things here is likely voters versus all potential voters, and the Yes on 15 campaign is working really hard to get out those low propensity voters, young people, new voters, immigrant voters, as I mentioned before. So, our polling is it needs to be stronger, but we are on the upside of 50%, and that's all that it takes for this measure to win.
I've been told that a typical mini mall small business will feel the brunt of the reassessment as the result of triple net leases that pass taxes onto lessees. Even though I understand the injustice and great need that motivates the proposition, I would hate to see small restaurants and nail salons having to pay a large portion of the bill. Can anyone speak with authority about the portions that will actually be paid by lessees? I heard that 80% of lessees are triple net. Can't vouch for any of it being true. Michelle is certainly our in-house expert, serving on the policy committee as the chair for this ballot initiative for before it even was a ballot initiative. So Michelle can definitely speak with authority. Michelle, what say you on this question?
Yeah, well, yes, thank you for the question. And we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but I'll try to be simple. And we also really cared about the donut shop and barber shop and nail salon and did not want to impact them. So a couple of different things. First of all, the measure contains an exemption for all properties that are $3 million or under in California. And our research shows that 88% of all properties do not exceed that threshold. So it's really a much, much smaller universe of properties that will be reassessed. The vast majority will not. Number two, about 50% of all small businesses in California are actually home-based, people working out of their little office or den or their bedroom. So they are completely exempted from the get-go. Next, there is a provision in the measure that provides an exemption on the first $500,000 of the business personal property tax. That's a tax on machinery and computers and business equipment. So that will actually be a tax reduction. It's a rebate to many, many small businesses that can be desperately used right now by most of them. You know, for that, our statistics show that about 28% of businesses actually rent their space. Now, first of all, a large proportion of those are not going to be in, you know, $3 million+ properties. So they will not be impacted by it. For those who might be, because they're part of a conglomerate, like Blackstone, there is a phase-in period for small properties. The whole first year will be devoted to letting the assessors get organized and figure out how they're going to implement this change. And we suspect that they will start with the biggest, largest properties first. That's where most of the revenue is, and then work their way down to the smaller properties. So it could be easily 2025 before those smaller places experience any kind of increase. I can say more. Maybe we'll send out some links to some research studies and so forth, but let me leave it there. And thanks for the question.
Thank you. Very good questions. Very helpful answers, Michelle, as well. For those that are interested, Julio did share the link to the CalMatters overview about the NAACP, so you can check that out. It was sent at 6:10 in the chat if you have access to the chat. And we will, thank you, Jeff. We will send additional information and links from Michelle out as a follow-up to all those who RSVP'd for the event. If you did not RSVP and somebody just sent you their link, please put your email in the chat so we can make sure to get that information back out to you. Okay, I'm seeing another chat here from Sarah Pillsbury, one of our founders at Liberty Hill, who is saying that a helpful reminder that Proposition 16, 17, and 18 were all legislatively referred constitutional amendments, which means the legislature already voted 2/3 to put this out to voters. There is a requirement that we need to vote on it as a state directly to the voters because they are constitutional amendments, but we already did pass the threshold of 2/3 of our state legislature voting in favor. Again, 16 is affirmative action. 17 is parolees having the right to vote, and 18 is 17-year-olds being able to vote in the primary when they will be 18 in the general. So thank you, Sarah. Next up, based on our poll, we just decided that we would go to Measure J. So if you have a question about Measure J, please go ahead and put that in the chat. If you feel that you are an expert on Measure J and would like to share your opinion, your intel, or anything else, you are welcome to raise your hand. Again, to use the raise hand button in Zoom, as you see on the screen, you can press the participants tab if you're on your computer, and then click raise hand at the bottom of that list of participants. If you're on your mobile device, you can click the 3 little dots that say more underneath and then click raise hand. So again, if you feel that you have a lot to say about Measure J, J for Justice, please go ahead and raise your hand. I'm not seeing any specific questions about Measure J yet here in the chat. Let's see. All right, that was a note from Michelle about schools and communities first. Measure J. Sarah, do you have something to say about Measure J? Go ahead.
I don't recall exactly whether the supervisors absolutely had to put this on, but they really needed to thread the needle here, because obviously their constituents, many of their constituents are in the unions who will be affected by giving people alternatives to incarceration. So by putting it on the voters, they won't have to face the sheriff and deputy's attorney unions, but that are they not surprisingly, Measure J is being really, really outspent by the sheriff and district attorneys union. And hey, Shane, I'm just going to say it, okay? That if the people want to know, maybe Shane muted me because I was going to invite everybody to her house, actually to her Zoom room on Saturday if they want to hear more about Prop J. But basically, all of the soups voted for it, with the exception of Christine Barger. I think I'm right. And it's really in line with one of Liberty Hill's, main goals, which is to really reduce juvenile and really all incarceration as we know it.
Thank you, Sarah. And yes, we will definitely extend that invite. I think that was just an accident that you were muted. Nobody muted you on purpose, but there is a Measure J event, Reimagine LA event this Saturday at 4 p.m. And we will put the information up about that event in the chat, as well as at the end of the event. So if our chat monitors can just put the RSVP link for that event in the chat, that would be great. Before we move off Measure J, I am looking here at Harold Bronson's question, which is, because of the dire straits of the economy and tax revenue, if this passes, what will the negatives be? So Harold, this is a great question. And I invite others to raise their hand if you'd like to help answer it. I'll go ahead and start off. This is actually not a new tax. This is actually a shifting of existing tax revenue, local tax revenue that's generated and put into the general fund for the county. So what this means is that we're saying at bare minimum, 10% of our general operating general fund money that's put into the county coffers will go to things such as housing, job creation, healthcare, and other uses that are deemed appropriate within this framework of alternatives to incarceration and community development. Within that 10%, the supervisors still have discretion, as they always have, in determining what are the specific line items of that budget. So it's not necessarily specifying with a sharp pen specific line items and the amount next to them, but instead it's saying that 10% of our general fund dollars in the County of Los Angeles need to be designated for purposes that fall into these broad categories of community development and alternatives to incarceration, which many would argue simply just rebalances and realigns our priorities with our budget, maintaining the same level of flexibility for our supervisors to actually make specific designations around the actual dollar amount and which types of programs. Angela is sharing that the allocation of alternatives to incarceration of 10% is modest compared to the majority of general fund dollars which go to police, fire, and other punitive law enforcement measures like the probation department and things of that nature. So thank you, Angela, for weighing in with that. Howard is asking, what percent goes to these alternatives now? It's actually about 2.5%. This ballot measure obviously will increase by about 4% or so the allocation to these priorities. Great question, Howard. Any other questions? Please feel free to put them into the chat. I'll ask our resident in-house expert on all things justice, Julio, if you're still on the line, if you have anything to add to what I've shared already.
No, I just want to share that I think one of the questions was about the Board of Supervisors, and part of the reason why they put it on the ballot is that this is in perpetuity. So they obviously, Mark Ridley Thomas will not be a Board of Supervisor next year, and so they wanted to ensure that, there was a process that voters could weigh in. So of course this has, this is just one of those moments in time where I think the public has spent a lot of time talking about alternatives. We no longer want to build jails. We know they're ineffective. They're a significant percentage of both the city and county budget. The sheriff's department, is not going to see its $3 billion annual budget go anywhere soon. But what we're saying is that when there is flexible funding, we need to fund the alternative, and I think the communities have been demanding that. And for the most part, I think we would have been in a decent position had not COVID happened. So the reality is now we have to go to the ballot to ensure that these dollars are locked in.
Thank you, Julio. And I do want to note that Julio actually provided some great information from the LA Times editorial board's endorsement in the chat. If you haven't yet read it, it's pretty powerful in regards to the words that they use to describe the impact of Measure J. Sonia also at 6:19 put into the chat the October 10th, this Saturday at 4 p.m. Measure J event. Make sure to RSVP if you haven't yet already. Many of our board members and our very own President and CEO, Shane Murphy Goldsmith, are co-hosts, so you don't want to miss it. All right, so we have covered Proposition 25, Schools and Communities First, and Measure J. We still have some time in the event, so we're going to move on to, I think, the next highly voted items, which were also put into the chat. There seemed to be interest in a few of the additional ballot propositions. These actually Liberty Hill hasn't taken a stance on, but we're happy to share information and provide a space for dialogue on these. So the first one, Proposition 22. This is the rideshare app-based exemption from labor laws. Is the most quick way that I can describe the ballot initiative. So if you don't know, you don't have your ballot propositions memorized, which I don't think any of us do. Proposition 22 basically would exempt Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare app-based companies from complying with the labor laws that were voted on by our legislature and passed into law related to independent contractors. So as folks probably know, the Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare company folks who actually do the driving, they are independent contractors. And the state law that was put into place actually mandates that those companies actually put on their payroll, paying payroll taxes, benefits, following wage and hour laws, that those companies, are adhering to that policy. Obviously, on the other hand, the app-based companies have said, hey, our drivers like being independent contractors, so leave them alone. We want to be exempt. So the choice you have there is between, labor and a compliance with the new labor laws that have passed, or a carve out for Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare companies. If you feel that you are an expert or you have an opinion that you want heard on this particular ballot initiative Proposition 22, please raise your hand, either just wave at me or raise your hand through the participant tab and click raise hand, and you would be more than welcome to share your opinion. Of course, Liberty Hill has not taken a position on this particular ballot initiative. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Okay, if you have a particular question that you would like to share on Proposition 22, you are more than welcome to do so, but I hope I provided at least an overview that is objective, so you know what is it. All right. Thank you for those that are providing positivity in the chat. We appreciate that. Thank you for joining us. John Manulis, vote no on 22. John Manulis, would you like to unmute yourself and share your perspective? No, but thanks. Okay, thanks, John. We'll continue on with our discussion. All right, the next one that I saw was Proposition 23. This is the kidney dialysis ballot initiative. Folks may feel like, didn't I just vote on this? Actually, in fact, you did. This is back at us. It was a similar ballot initiative that was on one of our ballots very recently. This kidney dialysis initiative was brought to us by many of our friends in labor who would like to see some labor standards put into place at the kidney dialysis centers. On the other side, we have many kidney dialysis companies who argue that this will negatively impact their business and negatively impact their kidney dialysis patients. So actually, there are many ballot initiatives that are on the ballot this go around that are redos. You've seen them before. They're back at us again. This is one of them. It is. There are some funny ads out there about the fact that many things on the ballot are coming back at us for a second time, or after many years are coming back at us, like the repeal of Proposition 209 or the partial repeal of Proposition 13, as in the case of Schools and Communities First. All right, thank you, Sarah, for your input. If you'd like to share your opinion via chat, you're more than welcome. Again, if you have a strong opinion and you want to share it verbally, you can use the raise hand button and share it on kidney dialysis or on rideshare. I do see Angela's question. Does this ballot proposition take away the choice for drivers to be independent contractors? Yes, the ballot initiative, which is a ballot initiative Proposition 22, would indeed mandate that the rideshare companies, if they are working, full time, and they are working, part-time, that they are employees versus independent contractors, so that they're able to get benefits, that they're paying into payroll taxes, and so forth. There are pros and cons to that argument. All right. If benefits, yes, individuals who are working full-time would be required to receive benefits, Liz. All right, so I do want to do one more that is a redo from another 2018 ballot initiative. This is actually a priority of Liberty Hills. So I want to go back to some of the questions in the chat, which are related to Proposition 21. So ballot initiative 21, or Prop 21, is related to rent control. This is a priority that Liberty Hill has invested in for many years, since the late 1970s when we were founded. We were supporting tenants' rights organizations organizing to keep their rent stable, to ensure predictability about their rents. What we're seeing right now is, in some cases, spikes in rents. Prior to recent state legislation, we were seeing in some cases 20%, 80% rent increases from one month to the next. Fortunately, last year, tenant organizations and advocates, activists across the state organized and said, these skyrocketing rents are pushing millions of people into homelessness. And in California, this isn't right. We have the 6th largest economy in the world. We need to do a better job of providing affordable housing to our tenants across the state. So fortunately, tenant advocates and activists that we support were able to pass legislation to cap rents at a maximum of 10% per year, generally speaking. Yet, that we know is not affordable for those that have lost their job due to COVID. For those that are struggling to put food on their table. An increase of 10% is hundreds and hundreds of dollars per year. And so we have activists working for greater change to cap rents at 3%, something more modest, like even a 4% increase of rents seems more reasonable to many of our tenant advocates and leaders on the ground. And so this ballot initiative 21, would allow for cities like Los Angeles to expand and pass a new policy that would apply rent stabilization ordinances to more buildings. Right now, state policy does not allow for cities like Los Angeles or Santa Monica or West Hollywood to change their existing ballot or their existing ordinances, their existing policies. So we're saying that, it's time. It's time for cities and counties to be able to refresh their rent stabilization ordinances, not be stuck in, the late 70s and say that more buildings should be eligible, more tenants should be eligible to have stable rents, and landlords should be able to have predictable rent increase ability versus some volatility. So that's the pitch. We have taken a stance on Proposition 21. We say yes on Proposition 21 and the expansion of rent stabilization. I'm scrolling up here to find the questions that folks had asked. And if you do have a question, please feel free to retype it into the chat so that we can get to your question. From Liz. What controls for landlords who may ignore the needs of their tenants even more than some do now? So what this ballot initiative would do is simply to allow cities and counties and other jurisdictions to go further in their existing ordinances or to implement policies. Then the cities would be able to cap the allowable increase for landlords. Hope that answers your question, Liz. Liz, do you want to say more or ask again?
Landlords will let the units of renters run down and be ignored, so they live in toxic, dangerous situations. So that is truly it's almost like a deliberate ploy to get them to move out. Yes, and in fact, that's what it is. So my concern is about protecting tenants from landlord abuse.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, so there are some policies statewide about issues like habitability. Does your water work? Do you have the right lighting and the right plumbing? However, you're right. Those policies are very light, and we could go further to strengthen those policies. In fact, here locally, tenant advocates are currently working to pass an enhanced and creating additional rights for habitability for tenants. So please do email, call, send a message to your favorite city council person if you live in the city of Los Angeles, because this habitability policy has been sort of on hold for a while. So we want to make sure that it's on top of their radar. Thank you, Liz, for raising that. And there's a great opportunity and call to action for folks who are interested. And if our chat monitors could include any other questions about Prop 21, again, that's the rent control or rent stabilization ordinance, I would greatly appreciate it, because I'm having a difficult time moderating and looking back into the chat. I know I did see a couple of questions about landlords earlier. In the meantime, I will go to Carol, who's writing me a note asking, could you please remind me of your recommendation on Prop 23? Everybody is welcome to put your own personal opinion on Prop 23 into the chat if you have one. Again, this is the kidney dialysis repeat ballot initiative. We do not at Liberty Hill have a recommendation. However, I will say that labor put this forward, SEIU and others within the labor community across the state. And in the opposition, we have the kidney dialysis companies. All right. I think we have reached the end of our dialogue this evening. If you haven't had a chance to weigh in and you have something to say, please do raise your hand either through the Zoom raise hand function or just literally raise your hand, and I'll try to look out for your hand. And you're welcome. The floor is yours for dialogue and discussion, sharing your opinions with colleagues and other Liberty Hill supporters. So please do let us know if you have something to say. All right, I'm seeing some folks add in some opinions. Proposition 24. Sarah, would you like to unmute yourself and share your opinion on Proposition 24?
Well, I'll be honest, I pretty much copied this from the Courage campaign, but it is just, it's one of the reasons why these initiatives, this is not the best way to make laws, okay? When you can have a guy put in almost $5 million, for a proposition that he wrote, okay, and would disproportionately affect working people and families of color, because not only would people have to pay for these to protect their personal information, but it allows tech companies to upload people's personal information as soon as they leave state borders, and it ignores the universal kind of electronic do not sell my information signal. Okay, so knowing that one.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, Proposition 24 is another confusing one. So take a look at what Sarah has written in the chat. If anybody else has an opinion on Proposition 24 or anything else, you are certainly welcome to share it as well. This is a discussion amongst friends and Liberty Hill community members. All right. Please do check out our voter guide. Please, for our chat monitors, if you could include our voter guide both in the follow-up email, as I'm seeing Soma say via the chat, as well as in the chat box now, so that people can look at it when we wrap up this call. I'll also ask that Ray, if you could move us to our closing slides, that would be great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today for this lively conversation. We said we would get people out within an hour and 15 minutes. So I hope you've learned something, had some fun in our discussion, and I hope that you keep the conversation going with friends and colleagues. What can you do? Well, of course, we know that everybody can vote, and you can also bring other friends, family members, those that you know aren't as likely to vote as yourself to the polls as well. So please make sure November 3rd, actually between now and November 3rd, you can send in your mail-in ballots that we are all receiving. And on November 3rd, we have a number of voting centers across LA County. So please make sure to vote. Again, what we said in the trivia is correct. In the trivia game, you can register same day, November 3rd, to vote. So if you know anybody that has not yet registered to vote, of course, they can mail in their their registration by October 19th. And if they still haven't registered to vote, after that deadline, you can actually go to the voting center and same day register to vote, which is very good news. You can also volunteer. There are many volunteer opportunities. For us at Liberty Hill, we encourage you to hit the pavement or the phones for Schools and Communities First, which is Prop 15, or Measure J. Those are our top two priorities. But of course, you may find other ways to volunteer time, but please spend a few hours this weekend, the following weekend, these evenings, getting your neighbors, other states out to the polls. We'll put up a slide that asks for folks to sign up in just a second. And then of course, you can donate. Give to grassroots electoral organizing campaigns in Los Angeles through Liberty Vote, which is our initiative to ensure that folks are getting to the polls, particularly those in communities who are not as likely to vote. So please do contribute to Liberty Vote if you would like. And of course, you can also donate. to the very many ballot propositions and candidates on the ballot. For us, Schools and Communities First and Measure J would be our top recommendations in terms of where to donate. Next slide, we have a few upcoming events. First up, we talked a little bit ago about the virtual reception in support of Measure J. It's this Saturday, October 10th from 4 to 5 p.m. Please check it out with this small URL website here. We'll send it out via email as well as you can find it in the chat. Also, our Giving Circle, Black, is hosting an Allies on Me prop party, being an ally for Black people on the ballot. Next Saturday, October 17th from 10:30 to 12 p.m. You can RSVP at the link there or click in the chat and have the opportunity to also RSVP. Additionally, we have a Schools and Communities First phone bank. Date yet to be determined, but this is a great opportunity for all of us as a Liberty Hill community to sign up together to volunteer for a Liberty Hill specific Schools and Communities First phone bank, or you can sign up generally to volunteer with Schools and Communities First at the link that you see there. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed your experience at Liberty Hill's 2020 prop party. Really appreciate your enthusiasm and your participation, and we'll see you on the campaign trail. Thank you everybody and have a lovely evening.